Crystal Deal With It focuses on bridging the gap between where you're at now and where you'd like to be. We'll explore wisdom and techniques from a wide variety of domains and industries and apply them to your unique challenges. I love developing frameworks, processes, and storytelling metaphors that enable personal and business growth. Through actionable next steps, we'll build momentum and confidence. My goal is to help you clear roadblocks, do more with what you have, and realize the potential of yourself and your team. So throw your challenges my way, and Chris will deal with it. Episode 13, Seasonal Summary for Quarter 3 of Summer 2022. Today's roughly the 3-month mark of the Crystal Deal With It podcast. It also marks the start of my personal fourth quarter. Every 3 months, I do a deep check-in on where I'm at personally and professionally. This first seasonal summary episode is an experiment. It's both a way to illustrate how I plan my years, quarters, weeks, and goals, a chance to reflect on the podcast itself. It'll be a review of what we covered so far and look ahead to what I'm planning for the quarter ahead. Today's episode is going to cover several areas. 1, I'm going to detail my quarterly review process. 2, I'm going to do a quick check-in on my yearly theme. 3rd, I'm going to get into a reading review for everything I read in the past 3 months. And lastly, I'm going to do a Crystal Deal With It review. So 1, my quarterly review process. I set aside a 3 to 4 hour block of uninterrupted time. It's a deeply personal process. I'm not going to go into all the details of what I actually wrote down and thought about with myself. My goal here is to share the process itself. Throughout my review, I do try to stay high level. I avoid getting bogged down with every individual task associated with my goals or my personal and work lives. To put it another way, I really look at what are the major goalposts that I'm striving towards, because it does help put all those other tasks in their proper context. So I go through the following steps to check in with myself. 1, overview of the past 3 months. What are my impressions? What were the big events? How have they affected me? How did the actual quarter align with my ambitions and plan? 2nd, I'll go into a yearly theme and goals review. How am I tracking to those yearly goals? What have I struggled with? Why? How should I reorient myself going forward? And what's a realistic vision of where I'd like to be at the end of the year? 3, Code of Principles review. So I go through all of my 13 principles, and I'll likely do an episode on those principles in the future, but I go through each one of those principles and ask myself, how have I been living that principle? Where have I fallen short? These tend to be very complex answers that lean more towards lifestyle choices, those elements of life that have a direct impact on what I am able to accomplish. 4th, I'll go into quarter 4 goal setting, and I take my notes from my yearly theme and goals review, as well as the Code of Principles review, and use both to formulate a list of my goals for the next 3 months. And it's important to mention here, I do think it's fine to alter your focus through the year. I do stick to a common theme for the year, and that theme is more adaptable to the changes that might occur during the year. But you do have to accept that some goals may have been too lofty, not properly structured, or circumstances changed, dictating going in a different direction. But I do make these calls only at a quarterly or yearly level after deep consideration, internal debate. If something comes up in the middle of a quarter, I will make notes, but then save it towards that time where I do a deep dive and take it in a more complete context. And the last part of that goal setting is then turning each of those goals into something I do in the first week to start momentum towards each goal. Part 2 of the seasonal summary is a yearly theme check-in. My theme for 2022 is fortified. The theme for this year is really based around the pun of turning 40. My mission is to make the world a smarter, healthier, and more inclusive place in a manner that inspires others to do the same. It's really about building a fortification, making sure that other people can benefit from what I've learned and what I'm able to provide them. And I set goals for this year that were very aggressive. So far, I'm tracking to about hitting 50% of them. This whole process for me with these yearly, quarterly, weekly reviews is an exercise in evolving. Your plans are intended to be altered and adjusted. I like having lofty goals, and for me, I know I'm not going to get all of them done, but I do think that this past quarter I was pulled in a lot of different directions. The decision to start this podcast was a Q2 decision. I worked towards it and then launched it this past quarter, and I really feel like I'm doing solid work, and I got my writing back on track. So those are the big wins from the quarter. But my focus area for next quarter is going to be reestablishing my baseline daily habits, because I think I got away from that in the third quarter a bit. Great example is I'll get into in section 3 is my quarter 3 reading review. So summer is always a slower reading month. This year was no exception, but even then it was way short of where I like to be. My goal for the year is about 40 books, and this past quarter I finished 4 of them. I did get most of the way through 3 others, but the 4 books I read this month: Anything You Want by Derek Sivers, which is a reread from the first edition I read back in 2011. The Stoic Philosophy of Seneca, Essays and Letters, which was translated by Moses Hadas. Prayer for the Crowned Shy by Becky Chambers, which is number 2 in her incredible Monk and Robot Hope Punk series. People who subscribe to my newsletters have seen a quote or two from her books in them. And lastly, How to Take Over the World by Practical Schemes and Scientific Solutions for the Aspiring Supervillain by Ryan North. Again, it's the second Ryan North book. It's so phenomenal. I just love the way he breaks down popular science into a nice, funny narrative. So the fourth part of the seasonal summary is Chris will deal with it review. In the first 3 months, I feel like I'm finding my voice, and I'm also I need to focus more on finding the audience for the podcast. I'm very appreciative of the support I've received thus far, but I know I need to do more to widen that audience or be more specific in the type of advice and projects that I'm working on. I've bounced between personal coaching questions, business advice questions, practical how-tos across those first dozen episodes, and I have sprinkled in a few special ones to kind of see how they resonate. For now, I'm going to continue to explore in these 3 months going forward, answering really any questions or challenges that come my way, and trying to sprinkle in a few more of these special episodes. So far in the show, I've touched on identifying and pursuing hobbies and passion projects. Then with the second episode, I talked about techniques for improving the work-life balance as you start your own business. Number 3 was minimizing possessions, both physical and mental, and it really is surprising the margin by which this was my most popular episode. I followed that one up with a fun workshop with Lauren Belanco of the 20-Sided Store, and we dug deep into self-publishing and the game industry. Episode 5 was all about the challenges of job hunting after spending a long time with the same employer. Then it was a review of CRM platforms, their various benefits and pitfalls. Episode 7 was all about going from the hobby to a small business with Chris Madd. I also want to give Chris a special shout out here for being the audio engineer that really helped me launch Chris will Deal With It 3 months ago. Episode 8 discussed parenting challenges across decades as I celebrated turning 40 with my mom in town and had a special episode of Mom Will Deal With It. Number 9 was the first of my Managing the Middle series, where I gave advice to Charlie Bucket before his big day at Wonka's factory. I used this fictional lens to really talk about how to come into an organization with an open mindset. The Managing the Middle series is all about finding that middle ground, not just in work or in mentorship or any other area, but really life as a whole. So I'm going to sprinkle in probably one more Managing the Middle series every quarter. Episode 10 covered techniques for making and utilizing time for passion projects around busy schedules and demands. Episode 11 was a sad episode after the passing of my feline pal Yoshi, who I shared some contemplations on death and memory, and just some stories of her. Episode 12, I talked about how to start being a mentor and ensuring you maintain your own network of mentors as you continue on your professional journey. So again, that's a quick summary of the episode so far. It's been a lot of fun. I've actually moved this from what was originally going to be every 2 weeks to a weekly episode. Again, the best thing I can ask for right now, if you really want to help this show, would be send in more questions. You can email me directly at chris.kreuter@gmail.com. That's chris.kreuter@gmail.com. Or go to chriskreuter.com. I'd like to close out the quarter with a quote from Derek Sivers' book, Anything You Want. Again, it inspired me so much in my first read in 2011, but even more so now during my summer reread. And he's got a short little chapter called Why You Need Your Own Company that I have to share with you. We all need a place to play. Kids need playgrounds and sandboxes. Musicians need an instrument. Mad scientists need a laboratory. Those of us with business ideas, we need a company. Not for the money, but because it's our place to experiment, create, and turn thoughts into reality. We need to pursue our intrinsic motivation. We have so many interesting ideas and theories. We need to try them. The happiest people are not lounging on beaches. They're engaged in interesting work. Following curiosity is much more fun than being idle, even if you never have to work a day in your life. That's the best reason to have a company. It's your playground, your instrument, your laboratory. It's your place to play. So get the ideas out of your head and into the world. If you feel that Chris dealt with it, I'd appreciate your support of the show by sharing it with someone who might benefit. Ratings on your favorite podcast player are also helpful in growing the audience. Visit chriskreuter.com for free downloadable PDFs with notes and resources from today's episode, sign up for the CDWI mailing list, or to send in your problems or requests for future shows. That's CHRISKREUTER.com, or use the link in the show notes. Thanks for listening. Chris will deal with it.